Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's informational session. We'll be covering the New Mexico energy economy, which is really exciting. And we're really happy to have a bunch of our partners for our clean energy cluster here today to present on their respective programs. So we have representation today, and you'll hear presentations from NMEDD, so the New Mexico Economic Development Department. They will cover things like grants that they have available, LEDA, JTIP, some of their programs, the Rural Efficient Business Program. We'll also cover the R&D and entrepreneurial landscape here in New Mexico. And then the national laboratories, so Los Alamos National Laboratory and Sandia National Laboratory, we'll talk about three of their entrepreneurial programs, so NMSBA, Trigger, and LEAP. We'll also talk a little bit more about our clean energy cluster, what you could expect from it, what you can gain from being a member. And then we'll have an opportunity at the close for breakout rooms. So if you would like to talk to any of us, we'll have, I believe, 4 different breakout rooms you can join to ask questions, engage with the speakers, and learn more about these different programs. So with that, we're going to go straight into, we have a bunch of programs, so we're going to get right into it. The first speaker is Alex Greenberg. He's representing the New Mexico Economic Development Department. And with that, Alex, I'm going to hand it right over to you. And you should be able to share. There we go.
Oh, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Everyone can see my slides? Good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Greenberg. I'm the director of the Science and Technology Office for the State Economic Development Department. I'm going to talk about a couple of the grant programs that the Office of Science and Technology has before turning it over to my colleagues who are going to go into a little more of some of the EDD programs available for startups and entrepreneurs in New Mexico. So starting off with the SBIR, STTR matching grants, the goal is to accelerate commercialization of technologies developed with Small Business Innovation Research Awards. And this is a competitive grant focused on helping New Mexico science and technology companies accelerate the commercialization of technologies developed with federal Small Business Innovation Research Grant Awards. Awards will fund and assist New Mexico science and technology companies with the goal of market entry, customer acquisition, business expansion, job creation, and increasing the tax base. In terms of eligibility, you must have an active federal SBIR, STTR, Phase 1 or Phase 2 award. Eligible applicants must attend the SBIR grant kickoff webinar, which we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks. You must be headquartered in New Mexico. You must have a New Mexico CRS tax ID, a physical New Mexico address, EIN number, and NAICS code. The business's staff must be physically present in the state and occupy a physical space. Businesses with virtual headquarters in New Mexico or a business with more than 40% of their staff outside the state will not be considered. Must be a for-profit technology business, a technology business that creates a technology-based device or software, and technology-enabled businesses will not be considered. For example, a company that uses technology to sell a service or a product that is not a device or software. In terms of the scope of the award, the Phase 1 match is $25,000 and the Phase 2 match is $100,000. In terms of scope, last fiscal year, we were able to award 5 different companies from across different industries and sectors. For the use of funds, awards will fund and assist New Mexico science and technology companies with the goal of market entry, customer acquisition, business expansion, job creation, and increasing the tax base. As I mentioned, a lot of the federal awards are making their final determinations this month, and so the goal is to be opening those up this October on the 17th, and we'll have the kickoff webinar either before that date or shortly after. The next grant program that we have are our science and technology grants. The Science and Technology S&T Business Startup Grants is a competitive state-funded grant that supports small businesses engaged in research and development with the potential for commercialization of their technology. The S&T grants assist early-stage companies developing a unique product with strong growth potential. These funds may be used to cover expenses related to business development, such as marketing, customer acquisition, patent filing fees, conference travel, and salaries for employees related to business operations. This grant provides recipients much needed resources to commercialize their technology in the company's early stage. In terms of eligibility, similarly with the SBIR matching grants, you must be headquartered in New Mexico, must have a New Mexico CRS tax ID, a physical New Mexico address, EIN number, and valid NAICS code corresponding to a science and technology business. Again, the business staff must be physically present in the state and occupy a physical space. Businesses with a virtual headquarters in New Mexico or a business with more than 40% of their staff outside the state will not be considered. Again, must be a for-profit technology business, a technology business that creates a technology-based device or software. Technology-enabled businesses will not be considered. Again, it's a company that uses technology to sell a service or a product that is not a device or software. For eligibility beyond some of the preliminary requirements, the main industry sectors that we focus on are aerospace, biosciences, cybersecurity, intelligent manufacturing, and then sustainable and green energy. The scope of the award is between $10,000 at the low end and $25,000 at the maximum. Last fiscal year, we were able to award 8 different organizations, again, across different industries and sectors. In terms of evaluation, we look for unique product or service, a clear and compelling business proposition, a scalable product and business model, capable team, good exit potential, and most importantly, the potential to create jobs in New Mexico and or follow on private investment. This grant will be opening up again this fiscal year on November 14th after the close of the SBIR matching grants. The total economic impact for the SBIR and science and technology grants for last fiscal year resulted in more than 20 jobs and $3 million in follow-on funding, and that's just been in the last 6 or 7 months. In terms of selection process, both the grant application windows will be open for 1 month. We'll make initial down selections based on eligibility among the parameters that I mentioned earlier, including the NAICS code, physical presence in New Mexico, making sure it's within one of our targeted sectors, and then again, the parameters around technology companies versus technology-enabled companies. We'll then submit to the Technology Research Collaborative Board for final recommendations. The TRC board includes myself, our Deputy Cabinet Secretary, John Clark, representatives from 3 national labs, Sandia, Los Alamos, and Air Force, and then 3 research universities, University of New Mexico State University, and New Mexico Tech, as well as members from the investment community, the industry community, and a nonprofit economic development organization. After that recommendation, our economic development leadership makes the final decisions in terms of awardees. This last slide here is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me at any time, either by email or phone. Feel free to call or text, and we'll be announcing some of the more detailed logistics in the coming weeks as we get closer to the opening dates. You can subscribe to our newsletter or be on lookout for email blasts or any different marketing channels for more information on that. And then the last point is that we're doing a lot of work with hydrogen in the state. And so hydrogen will also be a prioritized industry focus beyond sustainable and green energy. So if you have any hydrogen related projects or hydrogen related technologies, please send them out my way. And with that, I will send to my next colleague. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Alex. And then Aaron, we've got Sue ready to go. Sue, over to you. Nope, you're still on mute.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. I'm actually a consultant with the Department of EDD. I'm a contractor with them. And so at the end, I will not have a contact slide. I would ask that you reach out to Alex Greenberg and he can forward your questions to me. So very fortunate, next slide, please. So very fortunately, in New Mexico, we have a plethora of resources for entrepreneurs and startups. I'm starting here with what I call lab office incubators, tech transfer mentors. We have the Bioscience Center, which at this moment, they're 100% filled capacity with a wait list. On the side, though, the founder, Dr. Rose, states he's meeting with other entrepreneurs, 1 to 2 meetings every week. So the entrepreneur ecosystem is very, very busy right now. Same thing for the Santa Fe incubator. They've seen a significant increase in the number of bioscience companies. They just received a very large grant because they will be expanding their space this next year. And then at the Rainforest Innovations, they do a lot of tech transfer there. It's also co-shared lab space, office space. According to Lisa Kudala, they had 8 new companies formed in 2022, up from 4 in 2020 and 6 in 2021. So again, it's the whole ecosystem is going in the right direction. Next slide, please. Other places that do tech transfer, mentoring, have lab space. They'll be talking to these themselves, but Arrowhead Innovation Center, Lanel, Sandia Labs, and the only one that won't be speaking today is Fat Pipe. And Fat Pipe is a co-working space downtown Albuquerque. They have another location in Rio Rancho, Edgewood, and I think they just opened one in Taos. They're very successful in terms of co-working spaces. At these spaces, they also have mentors, attorneys, accountants, et cetera, that can help the companies that are cohabitating there. Next slide, please. Funding sources. This will probably surprise you. And there's actually a few that aren't listed here. But these funding sources, according to my research, have shown that they actually have funded companies in the bioscience space. And so if you would like more information on any of these, I actually have a lot of backup data on who's funding what and what size of fund that they do. These funding sources like Axion, they're a micro lender. Some of these are VC funds. Some of these are angel investors. And they're all here or serving New Mexico. Next slide, please. Here's another funding source that actually comes out of the state. It's the New Mexico Catalyst Fund. It's run by the State Investment Council. It's a fund of funds vehicle, meaning while they're focused on funding early stage companies, they actually fund it through VC funds that they choose to work with. And this is a matching fund that they do. Currently, these 6 companies have been given Catalyst funds, and they can invest up to $5 million. So this is really important for early stage companies that need that extra funding. Okay, next slide, please. These are our accelerators, and there are many more. I just wanted to highlight the ones that I've worked with. ABQID or Innovate IQ, the Ignite Community Accelerator, Ignite Business Accelerator at CNM, the New Mexico Startup Factory, Team Technologies, which is out of Sandia Tech Park. And then again, you'll hear more about the accelerators at Lanel and Sandia Labs. And I just want to mention, people ask me all the time, well, what's the difference between an incubator and an accelerator? An incubator space is really for some person or researchers that have a really good idea that needs to quote unquote incubate. It really needs to get developed further. An accelerator is they formed the business and now they have to get the tools to get that business to the next level. Hopefully that helps. Next slide, please. Coming soon. So Hatch is a company out of California. They have a real estate platform that's built around the life sciences. They've been extremely successful. They have more than one location in Los Angeles. They just built a huge one in San Diego. And they're the ideal space for STEM-based companies. Hatching, as they like to say, from co-working environments. So you'd be going from incubator to accelerator to Hatch. Right now, they're negotiating a space here in New Mexico. One of the things that they asked me recently is just more information on other incentives outside of, they are very familiar with LEDA and JTIP, but they would like other information from us on that. And so I'm really hoping that Hatch is going to be here come 2023. And that is my last slide. And again, please send your questions or inquiries to Alex Greenberg. And if you want more information, for example, on those funding sources, I'm happy to send that out. Thank you.
So, Erin, if you want to go ahead and share Luis's slide. Oh, Luis, are you going to share yours?
Right.
Ah, okay.
I hope so. I hope
Perfect.
so.
There
Can
we go.
everyone see those?
Yes.
Good deal. Excellent. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. This is important and helpful and valuable, and we're really glad you're here. So thank you. I'm going to share a small bit about some of the different tools in NMED's toolbox, our incentive toolbox, the different things we've got available. And by the way, I am Louise Marcus. I'm the lead specialist for the department, and I'm the regional representative in the southwest corner of the state. So first up, let's talk about some tax credits. High wage jobs tax credit is available to companies that are, there's eligibility requirements on all of the things I'm going to talk about, and recognize that I may not cover all of those. Just know that they are there. But the high wage jobs tax credit will go ahead and provide a tax credit of 8.5% to companies that are paying more than $40,000 a year in areas with a population of less than 60,000, and forgive me, I swear I can do this, paying at least 40,000 in areas with a population of less than 60,000, and paying at least 60,000 in a population of 60,000 or more. That's a tongue twister. Anyway, the position, it's position-based, not employee-based. So the position needs to be occupied for at least 44 weeks of the year, because we recognize that employees come and go and they quit, and it takes a little time to find someone else. And the qualified employers are eligible for JTIP. And JTIP is another presentation after mine. So I'm just going to kind of let that sit out there. Know that the cap, this particular tax credit is capped at $12,750 per year per job. So that's essentially telling you jobs that pay up to $150,000 can receive this credit. If they pay more than that, this is still the amount you're going to receive. So this credit is all of these credits are, you can take them against any of your tax liabilities. So that's going to be your gross receipts tax liability, your compensating tax liability, or even your employee withholding, which is being withheld from their check. So in essence, it's cash in your pocket. The rural jobs tax credit, similarly, is on payroll on employees. There's divisions as far as tier 1 and tier 2, all based on population. The difference is a tier 1 position can receive a $1,000 credit for up to 4 years that the position has existed. Tier 2 is for the first 2 years that it exists. And again, it's $1,000 a year. The credit can be taken against the same liabilities. This particular credit, if there's more credit than liability at the end of the month, the credit rolls over to the next month. The manufacturer's investment tax credit, in essence, abates the state portion of gross receipts tax on any equipment purchases you're going to have related to the process. And currently, that tax rate is 4.875%. As you can see, there's hiring requirements that go with, for every $750,000 of equipment purchase, 1 employee must be added up to 30 million. And then above 30 million, 1 employee must be added for each additional $1 million in equipment. As I said, this is also a rollover credit. If there's more credit at the end of the month than there is liability, it rolls over. Going back to the high wage jobs tax credit, that one's actually a cash reimbursement. So if you layer all of these appropriately using the high wage jobs tax credit last, and there's more credit than liability, the state will actually refund you the money for that. So there is additionally the R&D, the research and development tax credit, which is 5% in, it's 10% in rural areas, 5% in urban areas of expenditures related to qualified research. And that's everything from equipment and land and building to payroll. That's a pretty generous credit across the board. Similar hiring requirements: as you reach certain thresholds, you need to add more people. There are some, as you can see at the bottom, and you'll receive the deck, I'm confident. So there are some exceptions to that credit as well. But when you start layering all of these credits, you can see it can impact your bottom line handsomely. The Local Economic Development Act, this is kind of my sandbox. LEDA was passed by state statute in the early 90s. LEDA is the investment of taxpayer dollars into private projects for the end result on the state level of incentivizing the creation of economic-based jobs. To that end, we will go ahead and invest You work directly with one of the regional reps on this, so it's not formulaic. I can't say if this plus this, you get this, but you will work very closely with the regional rep in your area. We're going to be looking at the total CapEx of your project, the total number of jobs created, the payroll of those jobs. And from that, move it up to the secretary's office, and they'll determine an award amount. It is a grant, but it works more as a forgivable loan, in that we do have to hold credit on any award for the duration of the contract. To get around the state's anti-donation clause, we work through a fiscal agent. They hold, the local government holds the funds and actually disperses them. There's a lot to a LEDA grant, but they tend to be pretty generous. They tend to go ahead and front load the funding, which is typically the time a company needs the most. Definitely something we want to talk to you about if you're in this lane. At the last legislative session, there was a change made to the LEDA statute to allow in extremely large projects. And these are so large that as of speaking today, there is one approved project in the state taking advantage of this. We're on the cusp of the second, but if the construction spend on a project exceeds 350 million and all of the taxing authorities agree, there is a mechanism to go ahead and reimburse 50% of all gross receipts received during the construction back to the company for use in the project. So again, something we're happy to talk about. Industrial revenue bonds, we call them IRBs, are a tax abatement tool. We can go ahead and there's a lot to setting up an IRB. You will work very closely with an attorney and the fiscal agent that handles the bond. But this will abate taxes on a property for up to 30 years. In Doña Ana County and Las Cruces, where I'm at, and in Albuquerque, it's limited, it's capped at 20 years. Typically includes payment in lieu of taxes. There's a lot of moving parts on this. One thing to be cognizant of is the company that's getting the IRB is paying the legal costs on both sides, because that can be a significant cost. We like to tell companies that unless the project exceeds 4 million in CapEx, it's probably not going to be worth your while to set it up, as far as the taxes abated and the costs for setting it up. But at that point, it can be a very, very valuable tool. A couple other things you should be aware of. There is no inventory tax in the state of New Mexico. Some of our surrounding states do have that. As of July 1st, 2021, manufacturers are exempt from compensating tax on out-of-state purchases. So, previously only purchases of equipment held under an IRB were eligible. With this eliminates the buyer's tax on all out-of-state purchases. So the manufacturer's investment tax credit can still be applied. It's perfectly legal, but in essence, it kind of works as a double dip. So this is an important one too. Again, all of it just continues to add to the bottom line. Gross receipts tax deduction on consumables, that includes your utilities, your electricity, natural gas, and water. Those, there's no GRT for manufacturers on those. And the counties of Bernalillo, Valencia, Doña Ana, and part of Sandoval County are parts of foreign trade zones. So know that there's no tariffs or duties on imports to the US, no tariffs or duties on international exports. So that also can be very valuable depending on what your project and plans are. New Mexico also has a single sales factor on corporate income tax. So I apologize, I'm going to read from this slide because it's good. But corporate income tax is taxed at a rate of 4.8% for the first $500,000, 6.4% for the next $500,000 up to a total income of $1 million, and 7.6% for income above that first $1 million. Manufacturers can choose to utilize the single sales factor in determining their corporate income tax liability. Because of New Mexico's low population, most manufacturers enjoy significant savings by utilizing SSF, allowing corporate income tax rate to be applied only to the portion of sales that occur in New Mexico. It's dependent on a manufacturer's products and sales. Typical savings are in excess of 98.5% of corporate income tax liability. That's significant. Cute little example at the bottom. You know, if you have $100,000 in net income, the total sales in New Mexico are only 1%. Apply that 4.8% to the total there, and your entire tax liability is $48. So it's easy to see how impactful that is. And with that, I'll be in the breakout room for any questions. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk about any of these things further. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Patrick with JTIP.
Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you, Louise. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Gannon. I am the State Director of the New Mexico Job Training Incentive Program, otherwise known as JTIP. JTIP has been in state statute since 1972. So every year we get legislative appropriations to fund this program. The last couple of years, we've received about $12 million to work with economic-based companies that are growing and expanding operations here in the state of New Mexico. Next slide, please. So what is JTIP and how does JTIP how does it benefit companies? Well, JTIP essentially reimburses qualified companies, excuse me, with a portion of expenses associated with training new employees in newly created jobs. Basically, it covers a portion of the wages of those new hires with the company. Next slide, please. So depending on where the company is located will determine the rate of reimbursement back to the company. So companies that are in an urban location, which is places that have a population of 60,000 or more, the base reimbursement is 50%. If you're in a rural economy, which is obviously anything under 60,000, the reimbursement rate is 65%. And of course, if you're a company that is located in what we call a frontier community, which is a region in the state with a population of less than 15,000, then the base reimbursement goes up to a 75%. With that, then we also have, we're able to cover a portion of the wages for, again, anywhere between 2 to 6 months, depending on how those jobs are classified in a tool that we reference called the ONET, a Federal Job Classification Code system. Within that system, there's job classifications, thousands of job job descriptions, things of that nature. And each one of those classifications has a job zone 1 through job zone 4, 1 being kind of a lightly skilled entry-level occupation, job zone 4 being just the opposite. Our JTIP board has assigned the number of qualifying hours respective to each job zone. So for example, if a company is hiring or creating software engineer positions, those typically fall into a job zone 4 classification and would qualify for a full 6 months of funding through the JTIP program. On the opposite side, let's say you have like a call center and you're hiring on customer service representatives, those typically kind of wind up in like a job zone 2 occupation and would qualify for 640 hours. So depending on the types of positions will determine, again, the number of qualifying hours that we would be awarding to each type of occupation. Next slide, please. With JTIP, we're a program that is very focused on working with economic-based companies. And so what are those? Those are essentially companies that are bringing new dollars into the state's economy. Typically, they are companies that are in manufacturing, that are exporting their product, or they are in the service sector, a non-retail service-based company that is exporting their service, like maybe like a software engineering company as an example. Those type of companies have to demonstrate that at least 50% of their revenue is being generated from a customer base outside of the state. And then we also work with companies in the green economy. Next slide, please. Companies that we work with typically kind of fall into several categories. Those that are existing companies in New Mexico that are expanding, and basically expanding meaning i.e. creating net new jobs. Companies that are relocating and becoming, establishing operations for the first time in New Mexico. and also early stage startup companies. But we do have rather, I don't want to say restrictive, but specific qualifying elements that have to be met for startup companies. One, they have to be financially viable, and they typically have to have their product or their service within 12 months to market. So if they're still very much in an R&D and don't see commercialization for a few years out, then it's likely that they're going to be premature for our program. Next slide, please. Every company that comes to JTIP for funding to assist in offsetting the cost of training a new workforce, we are required to do a financial due diligence. So depending on the type of company that we serve, will vary on the type of documentation that we gather. So if you're an established company, you have several years of history behind you, we definitely like to see a set of financial statements going back 3 years, which would include a balance sheet, your profit and loss, and a statement of cash flow. And if you have less than 3 years, then we start adding on other things like a term sheet, sales projections, a pro forma, which obviously would demonstrate your revenue projections, and then what are your projections being based off of. If you're an early stage startup company, again, we dig into a little bit further stuff. We want to see a business plan, again, that would include your pro formas, sales projections. If there's investor capital, are there term sheets, that are associated with those investor capital? We'd like to, obviously review those. A line of credit, if you establish a line of credit, sometimes depending on the stage of that early stage company, we may have the individuals provide some of their personal wealth that they may be positioning for the company, i.e. bank statements, their savings accounts, those kind of things. We have a finance director within the economic development department that basically does all financial vetting for both the LEADER program and for JTIP. It's just part of our process. All of that information that we gather, I should say, is held in confidence. Also, it's not shared in the public domain. Next slide, please. So the types of jobs we fund, of course, they have to be full-time year-round and sustainable, at least 32 hours a week. The positions must be filled by residents of New Mexico, obviously individuals who have lived in the state for at least one continuous year at any point in time in their life prior to their start date with the company. We do make allowances for interns. However, we do have sort of a narrowly defined definition of what that is. It's somebody who's currently in school, but maybe within the 6 months leading to graduation, or has become a recent graduate within the last 12 months prior to their start date with the company. So we do provide funding assistance for interns. Next slide, please. I guess this is more of a kind of a continuation of what I mentioned. So we have made an exception to the one-year residency if a company is creating a high-wage job, which anything over 60,000 in an urban area or 40,000 in a rural. The one-year residency is waived down to 1 day. However, the individual would need to relocate to New Mexico to become an established resident in New Mexico to qualify for us to fund that position. Next slide, please. And that pretty much covers it. Again, this is a really quick snapshot of what JTIP is. Usually it's a little more comprehensive. However, when we get into the breakout rooms, if there's those that would like more information or would like to schedule a one-on-one, I would be more than happy to make those arrangements. And thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Let's see, Felicia, do you want to drive your own slides or would you like Aaron to? You guys saw Felicia on here.
That would be great if Aaron could. Sorry, I was fiddling through my million screens that I have open.
Sure, no, there we go. You're good to go.
All right, well, just to give you a heads up, this will be fairly short because right now this program is in transition. I'm Felicia DePaula. I'm the program specialist and the Rural Efficient Business Program Manager with the Economic Development Department. And I'll be talking about our Rural Efficient Business Program, which offers assistance to small businesses and agricultural producers in New Mexico. So we offer resources to reduce energy consumption, increase profits, and implement renewable energy systems. Next slide, please. So essentially what we're here to do, and this again will likely change because we are going to be getting different funding, which won't limit us to rural businesses. So we're hoping to grow into urban as well. Help grow your business, reduce energy consumption, and implement the energy systems like I had just stated. Next screen. Okay, so this is essentially how our program works, and you can kind of just keep clicking through it, Erin. It's one of those slides. So you figure out, how can I save money in my business? What do I do? Where do I start? So you'll start at nmruralbiz.com, which will also be moving over to our main EDD site. But for right now, that is still an active link. You identify your needs. Do I need funding resources? Do I need to work with New Mexico MEP? Do I need to work with USDA? Do I just need to get a no cost energy assessment to figure out where to even start? And that's where you connect with me. And we do an overview with some of our partners, usually New Mexico State University. We're working with Jalal, but also that funding wasn't received this year, unfortunately. So we're trying to figure out where this funding will come from so that we can continue to provide no cost energy assessments to businesses, because that is the biggest need that's identified next to funding. But of course, that's a really big step, because when you get your no cost energy assessment through New Mexico State, it's almost like a cheat sheet for loans and grants that are funded through USDA and other partners. So at that point, I coordinate everything and we get things set up and figure out how to help you accomplish what you're needing. So we can go to the next slide, Erin. And those are some of our partners. So we look at all aspects of the business's current energy usage, and a lot of this will come from the engineers at New Mexico State. But in layman's terms, how can we decrease energy bills? Does that mean we change out our lighting to LED lighting? Does that mean that we change our toilets out to low flow toilets? What can we do basically to help save money in the long run? Again, that's where we move into our no cost energy assessment. And at that point, the engineers come on site, they do a 3-hour assessment, they come up with a report and an analysis within about a month. And then that's when we start rolling with it to figure out how can we financially support you so that this doesn't put you or the business in a situation where you're spending more money than you have, because this isn't necessarily a priority right now. As we've realized for businesses, because they're already struggling to stay afloat with having COVID hit so hard. So that's been the struggle with this program, is figuring out how do we actually have the finances flowing a bit more so that companies want to engage in this. And we can move to the next slide, Erin. So we've created impact. We've worked with 300 plus businesses. This year, we specifically helped Capital Bar and Socorro, helped them receive some REAP fundings to do solar paneling, and that is funding through USDA. And then we also helped the San Miguel Inn, and they qualified for 25% of a total improvement up to 80,000 through the REAP grant as well. That has been our biggest partner, is USDA, and working with Carlos out at REAP. It's the easiest loan / grant to apply for if you have that no cost energy assessment, but we're really trying to explore, hopefully through this infrastructure funding that will be coming out from DC, how we can really support businesses more financially. This year, there was an estimated savings without solar of about 40,000 that we were able to help businesses with, just to make some of these retrofits. Next slide. Right now, we're on hold with our monthly interview series, but it's still worth mentioning. We hit about 22 different businesses in the last year, just working with them, and they're more of a peer education interview is what it is, and how it's set up is they explain what they've done, the issues that they faced when starting the process, and other businesses can jump on and actually ask live questions to say, hey, I'm a brewery, where do I start? What do I do? I'm a winery, where do I start? What do I do? We're still trying to figure out if we're going to jump back on to do this, but because our partner at EMNERD has left his position. This is kind of at a halt right now because he and I would travel out to do these together, and he brought in a great aspect from the energy perspective, where he was a bit more knowledgeable. So if it were just me out there, it wouldn't be as in-depth questions. So we're on hold right now with this to figure out what our next steps will be. We can move on to the next slide. And then again, this is just an idea of who some of our partners are. We actually hosted a green business fair a couple months ago, and we did see some success in that. I know that Nusenda got some great partnerships, as did NMSBA. So that helped bring some awareness, and quite a few people tuned in. So that was something that I think we'll try to do quarterly or at least twice a year. And as we get our CPACE program rolling, this will be a bit more informative to bring in the green bank aspect. And we can move to the next slide, which probably should have been removed. Yeah, this is on hold right now, so we could skip that slide, Erin, and I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, this program is really in transition right now, but that is the basics and the skeleton of the program, which won't change. It just may say rural/urban at this point. But thank you so much for having me.
Great, thank you so much, Felicia. And that's a great transition to Jeff, who will be talking more about NMSBA and the different lab programs. So Jeff, if you'd like to go ahead and share your slides.
Awesome. Yeah, give me just a second. I will try to share my slides. Hope everybody's doing good today. I guess I can just share my screen here. Can everybody see my presentation?
Yes,
Perfect.
It's in presenter mode. Maybe if you go to display settings, maybe you can switch it back. Yeah. There we go.
Okay, cool. Well, wonderful. Thank you guys all so much for having me today to speak. My name is Jeff Hall. I am the project manager for the New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program, which is one of the programs we'll be talking about today, offered through Los Alamos National Laboratories and through Sandia National Laboratories. We'll also talk about our Technology Readiness Initiative and the New Mexico LEAP programs as well. But let me go ahead and start us off here. Cool. So the New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program is pretty much one of our introductory programs. The thing that I want to highlight for everybody here is that it comes at no cost to the business. So essentially, you can get $20 or $40,000 worth of assistance to really help with any type of technical challenge that your business may be facing. And that funding is not in the form of like a cash grant. It primarily pays for the scientist's time, as well as costs associated with the project, such as materials, overhead, different things like that. And the project process kind of follows this workflow here. It all starts off with any business that's New Mexico-based for profit submitting an application through our web portal. And in the top, I want to say right corner of the screen, you'll see this button here, submit a request for assistance. And that gets the ball rolling. After about 5 days, you get a call from a project manager, either with Sandia or with Los Alamos. And we do an intake interview. basically where we're going to first ensure that we get all the paperwork taken care of and you meet the minimum qualifications, and then to really better understand and grasp what the project is. And this is what takes the most time, really understanding what the work is and understanding who can do the work, I think is the most challenging part of an NMSBA project. But once that's taken care of, and we have an agreement in place, the project work takes on average around 120 days or more. However, each one of these projects runs on the calendar year, and the funding is renewable year after year. So a lot of times we have companies who use the projects pretty consistently year after year. And the reasons why are that, obviously it's free, but you really have experts that are helping you solve your problems and your challenges. And building those relationships with the experts can really take you to the next stage of whatever technology that you're working on. And I can talk a little bit more about that with our trigger program, but I would say that most businesses are excited about the relationship they get to build with the scientists. And so here's some success from Sandia, a couple of companies that participated in some of our projects. We actually have an innovation celebration happening today to sort of celebrate a lot of the successes that have come from our previous 2 calendar years of projects. And if you guys are interested in learning more about those success stories, you can go to our website and check out their perspectives to get more information about that. Now, this you can see actually highlights projects working with UNM Management of Technology. So not only does the NMSBA program work with expertise inside of the national laboratories in New Mexico, we also have a few community partners as well, such as New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or the University of New Mexico's Management of Technology, New Mexico Tech, and a few others as well. And so, yeah, again, feel free to go to our website or reach out to me directly if you are interested in starting a project. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, the NMSBA is a really good launching point for that technology maturation. But the labs, as well as the state of New Mexico, are really interested in maturing that technology even further, and are willing to invest in that effort or into the companies here in New Mexico. And there's 2 ways that this can actually occur. One is through a technical assistance maturation agreement. The other is through a cooperative research and development agreement. Both of these are really designed to license technology that the lab has. And what's great about Trigger is you have access to the inventor of the technology that you're licensing in order to really take it to that next level. And if you qualify and go through the competitive process and get approved, you can get up to $150,000 of that assistance. So pretty amazing. Also, you can go to the Trigger website at nmtrigger.org to get more information about that. Just so you know what that workflow sort of looks like, or what that process would look like. Again, to start off, you would need to have a license with the laboratory before we can begin the process. But once that's in place, there's a statement of intent. And then as you see, the process goes through a lot of approvals and reviews. And for obvious reasons, it's a lot larger sum of money. a lot more of an investment into the organization, and so more competitive. Whereas the NMSBA project is non-competitive, this is very competitive. And again, those same benefits. I mean, you're really building a relationship with the person who invented the technology that you're interested in utilizing for your organization. So it could be extremely advantageous to do that. And really what the point of the program is to really try to move that technology closer to the point of commercialization, and increasing your understanding of that. And here is another example of a successful project that we had done through a trigger project. And again, you can find out more about that on the website. A good person to contact for that is Julia Wise. And I believe she is also on this call. But yeah, if you're needing any more information, if you have any questions, you can reach out to her. And then our New Mexico LEAP program. The LEAP program is really designed to bring more entrepreneurs here, in particular with science and technology startups. And really what it can provide you is a stipend. And I think what's the most important is it really introduces you into the ecosystem and really immerses you into what's happening at the labs. And it really helps the entrepreneur at that point sort of understand the capacity and their ability to navigate their business ongoing. And there's more benefits beyond that. As you can see here stated, there is a customized curriculum that's tailored for the deep tech venture with a focus on the product development. And yeah, you also get to live in New Mexico, which who wouldn't want that? So yeah, what we're really looking for within the New Mexico LEAP program are committed innovators that are willing to demonstrate a significant impact in a national security related problem. And the product would really have to align with a Los Alamos capability and have that unique value in that. As with all things, I think we're looking for someone who has that coachability factor. Again, here's the process as it goes. Applications are accepted March 1st through April 15th. So if you know anyone who's interested, they can apply during that time. Afterwards, it goes through a few different steps. And again, it is a competitive process. There are presentations, there is a committee that reviews, and there are different selections made for that program. Some examples of that would be this one here. Again, if you guys are interested in learning more about the New Mexico LEAP program, please feel free to contact Julia Weiss with that information. And just so you know, John Rogers and Amanda Garcia, though they are here at Lanel still, they are currently not working with the NMSBA program. Myself and Lucas Riegelsberger are the people you should be speaking with if you're interested in these types of projects. And I'll put our contact information in the chat for you below. And that's it for me. So thank you guys all so much for having me, and I'll pass it back to you, Dana.
Great, thank you so much, Jeff. Let me go ahead and reshare. Okay, so quickly before we break into the breakout rooms, and those are completely optional, but that's again another opportunity to talk to everybody. We just wanted to talk very briefly about Arrowhead Center and then New Mexico CERG and what these two programs can do if you are out of state. So Arrowhead, at a glance, we are the tech transfer and IP office for New Mexico State University. And then we also run a number of different programs across the state focused on entrepreneurship, economic development, commercialization of technologies, all of those fun things. So a lot of our programs are at the core customized to the clients and stakeholders we serve. We do focus on underserved populations. We have built over the last decade or so a very robust network of mentors and advisors. And all of these things really contribute to us being able to support your clean energy startup. So CERG, this is our clean energy cluster. We started it a few years ago with initial Department of Energy funding through their EPIC competition. And then we went ahead and applied for the larger EPIC grant, which we also received. And so CERG is essentially, it's a very close collaboration between us at Arrowhead Center, Sandia National Laboratories, Los Alamos National Laboratories, and the New Mexico Economic Development Department. So we're all collectively trying to increase the number of clean technologies that get to that commercialization point. Again, these are the partners that we have for this project. Of note, just so you can kind of see the roles, the different roles that we play. So NMEDD has been very, very supportive, Sue and Alex, at helping us identify and engage target companies for the cluster. It's been great promotional, and they really are one of the strong marketing arms for this cluster. And then they lend obviously a lot of expertise as well. And then the two national labs, this is a really unique project in that the participants who get accepted into the cluster have access to the labs for the programs that Jeff mentioned, as well as if you need to work with an SME or for other things, we can help facilitate those conversations. They also are a very key part to our vetting process for potential participants. Let's see. So what is CERG? It's CERG is made up of different modules. Again, the goal is to help get clean technologies closer to commercialization. And so we've developed what we've called modules to help startups do just that. So we have everything from self-guided courses with intellectual property, investment preparedness, excuse me, things like that. SBIR is obviously one of the best sources of non-dilutive funding for early stage tech development. And so we run an accelerator cohort essentially focused on the Department of Energy. So if you're interested in applying to those funds to DOE, we have an accelerator built specifically for that. We also know that customer discovery and market validation is huge when you're trying to commercialize the technology. And so we have accelerators that focus on that. If you have any needs for prototyping, CAD design, things like that, we have that available through our Foster Innovation Exchange. And then we also have access to our Arrowhead Innovation Fund, now moving towards the Audaz Fund, but basically investment funds for clean tech. And then obviously the National Lab Assistance, and then Innovation Ecosystem Connect, which is a project that we are piloting right now that will hopefully better connect startups, so US startups, to research institutions like the national labs, universities, things like that. This is just a brief kind of diagram of the pipeline. We envision this as a pipeline. So you can move as a startup, once you're in the cluster, you can move through it pretty fluidly based off of the stage you are at with your technology. And so all of the different modules, again, kind of work fluidly at whatever point you're at. And then at the end of our 3-year period of performance, we will have a pitch competition where we will bring in clean tech investors who will invest same day in some of the companies, which is really exciting. Some upcoming activities, if you're interested, again, that DOE SBIR Accelerator I mentioned, those applications will be opening very, very soon. And I have a typo here. They do not close on May 6th. That was the previous cohort. So we will be sure to send out the accurate dates with the follow-up email. The FIX, Foster Innovation Exchange, that is a always on program. Our IP course and our investment prep course, also always on program, so you can access them at any time. And that's it. So if you would like to learn more about the cluster, please do reach out to me. Erin is also here, and we'll also be in the breakout rooms. So these are the 4 different breakout rooms we'll have. Actually, the first one isn't really a breakout room. It's just the main room. And that's where the Arrowhead Center team will be if you have any questions about CERG or things like that. The first room will be for NMEDD grants, and then the R&D landscape. So Sue and Alex will be in that room. That second breakout room will be LIDA, JTIP, and the RIBP program. So Luis, Patrick, and Felicia will be in that breakout room. And then the last one will focus on the National Lab Program. So if you're interested in engaging with LANL, they will be there. And I do want to say that Sandia also participates in those programs as well. And so Jeff and Lucas and Julia can answer any questions if you have any regarding that.